not have national testing. We did not say to a student, if you do not achieve at this level, then you're not going to graduate from high school. If you do not achieve at this level as a school, you're going to be designated as an underperforming school. And we see reports in the paper 2 years in a row. If a school is designated as an underperforming school, then you have state intervention. And that's why I included tonight the articles from the Randolph Public School, a suburban community that is on the brink. So that's why it's important to talk about this and get the message out.
That provides a good segue into our next item, which is fiscal '09 budget development. And we really find ourselves, with the dilemma of really coming up with two budgets. A budget that's basically a status quo budget. And by that, I don't think it means level services. I don't think it means anything but what it says, status quo. Everything we have this year, we bring back next year. That means 2 hours off early on Wednesday. That means the same number of teachers. That means the same number of paras. That means everything we have this year for next year. What's that going to cost us? At the same time, we want to have a budget that is level service or increases what we have this year. Kind of, Dr. Trout and I have discussed it kind of as having pockets of, if we wanted to bring the music program back to where it was, how much would that cost? If we wanted to bring art back, if we wanted to bring phys ed back, if we wanted to add the reading teachers, and that's what Mr. Nelson and Dr. Troughton with the Administrative Council are working on right now. So David, if you want to.
Sure. Well, at the next meeting, Carl and I will bring that baseline budget, which will basically be a status quo. We have worked very hard to project out what it will cost to fund the North Reading Public Schools in FY09 based on the current conditions that we have here today. So that, as Mr. Webster said, it includes the same level of staffing, the same programs, the same parameters, including the Wednesday early dismissal, just everything exactly the same. We have added in that cost projection a 2% increase to fundamental expenses. So whatever it costs to, not including staffing, but whatever it costs to buy the books and the materials, the day-to-day operation of the school, we have inflated by 2%. Of course, utilities, that remains a pretty volatile area with fluctuating utility markets and costs, but Carl is doing his best to include that under the utilities budget, the maintenance budget. Fixed budget costs, we know that insurance costs are going to go up. We know that we have contracts in place. Although, again, as a reminder, this year the committee will be negotiating contracts with paraprofessionals, with the custodians, with secretaries, with food service, and principals and other administrators. The only group, a contract that has one more year, would be teachers. So in the FY09 budget, as we prepare that baseline budget, we have to make some assumptions about what those contracts would cost. We know what the teacher contract will cost for FY09. So we have not included in here, or will not for the first pass, we will not address any of the issues, any of the program cuts for last year, any of the staffing cuts. We're not looking to restore. We just want to get a picture of what that starting point is all about. We will then go through and identify, as Mr. Webster indicated, not wholesale restoration, but we'll try to cost it out in terms of, basic, basic areas of interest. It might be reading and literacy. It might be addressing class size at the high school. It might be addressing class size at the middle school. It might be time and learning. What will it cost to not only restore the number of hours to the middle school and elementary school? Because I think that a number of choices will need to be talked about, and this clearly, before any decisions are made, I think we need to involve the entire community in trying to determine those, what's of interest and what's of value. I know I've been speaking a lot with the principals, and the principals would say that from their standpoint, priority would be class size, continuing to address class size, to continue addressing inclusion, and to continue to address or attempt to address reading and literacy, and teacher collaboration time, which falls and connects with inclusion. Again, understand that with inclusion, if we are having an inclusive class where there's co-teaching going on within that classroom setting, then there's absolutely the necessity to make sure that all of the people who are involved, either at a grade level or at within a department, have that opportunity to really plan it out. And so, class size, inclusion, reading, literacy, and collaboration time are priorities for administrators. That may not be the priority for either parent associations or school councils or the broader community. And with each one of these comes a price tag. But right now, on the next meeting on the 26th, the baseline budget is not going to address any of these. We're not going to attempt to address class size or time and learning, but just what is it going to cost to run the schools next year under the status quo. We are also looking at, the administrative team looking at what I am terming smart reorganization. I think it's critical, not just here in North Reading, but in all school districts, to be not looking at how do you do things more efficiently, but can we do things in a different way and still either maintain or advance the quality, but perhaps through some level of reorganization. And I'll have more to say about that in the coming weeks. And we'll try to cost that out in terms of what impact that might have on the budget as well. But understand that because we've done something in a certain way in the past does not necessarily mean that we can or should continue it. And can we do something in a different way and yield a better result out of that, whether or not there's a cost saving. So I want the committee to know that we're taking a look at ways to reorganize our school. I'll give you one example. There's been discussion about how we provide preschool education. When we go back and think about preschool and facilities, our aim was to provide a preschool facility in each one of the 3 schools. And we're there. We have a preschool, integrated preschool, at least one section, sometimes 2 or more in each one of the 3 schools. The Hood School, in addition to an integrated class, also has another integrated class where children have higher needs in terms of special learning. And we're considering what would happen if we consolidated preschools in one location. That may provide better access, because a preschool class is not just the teacher in the class. There are many individuals interfacing with those children on a day-to-day basis, whether it's paraprofessionals, whether it's speech and language, whether it's occupational education. And so we're exploring what would that mean. Now, there's certainly advantages and disadvantages. There may be some educational advantages to doing that. There may be some disadvantages. There's certainly issues with how does that impact the starting time of the program, the ending time of the program. Right now, we are staggering our starting and ending times for the preschool among the 3 elementary schools because we're doing a lot of the transportation by van. So if we centralize that in one location, then that's going to cause a problem with transportation. So does that mean that if we centralize it, do we start every one of the classes at the same time to have some flex time in there? So Christine Danjo and the principals, elementary principals, are taking a look at that from an educational standpoint, and then we'll also put a cost factor on that to see whether or not the cost has any influence as to whether or not that would be a good thing or not a good thing to do. So we're taking that kind of approach to a whole lot of areas, and then stepping back and saying, is it feasible? Does it make sense? Is there an educational benefit? And is there a cost benefit that either overrides the educational or detracts from the educational? Because in some cases, it might be more costly to run a program in a certain way, but it might be smarter to do that from an educational standpoint. So that's what the administrative team is working on at this point. But I do want to test out, because the fact that the next meeting, you'll be looking at a baseline budget. I don't want to call it the preliminary budget, and I hope you don't call it the superintendent's budget. But that it represents a starting point that I think over the coming month or so, we can have some conversation with the school committee and also with the broader community about where we're going as a district.
I just want to add 2 things and then open it up to comments. One big issue that you hear a lot about is the healthcare costs, and unfortunately, the timeline that was set up this year to try to move town employees into the state insurance pool was almost impossible. You had like about a 6-week lead time, and it wasn't going to happen this year. But I know that the town administrator and Mr. Nelson are working on ways to, reduce health care costs, what that means to the employees, and I'm sure there's going to be discussions with the various employee groups over the next year as to how or if we can do that. But that's an issue that is being attacked from both the school and the town side. The other issue is revenue projections, and they're always conservative, and Mr. Derby and everybody who's been on the board longer than I have can tell you that they're always conservative. This year they're even more conservative. If you look at what the state's saying, the lottery is having real issues. They haven't even met the last year's revenue to dole out to all the cities and towns what was promised from last year. And the concern is that this year the lottery also isn't going to meet its revenue goals. That'll be an issue for not only North Reading, but for all the cities and towns. The revenue picture that we've been told is to look at, maybe a 1 to 2% increase in our budget after the costs after the health care and retirement costs and all those shared costs are paid out. So if you think of a 1 to 2% increase, it's not, that's not very encouraging. And my guess is that even our baseline budget, just keeping everything status quo, is going to be well beyond a 1 to 2% increase.
Yeah.
It like 5% at 4 or 5% at a minimum.
80% of 5%.
Right.
Have to be
4%. Right. No, but, and I did want to say, I support coming back with a baseline budget so we can see what number we're starting from. And then we'll know. We'll know exactly what we're going to get and how much it's going to cost for that status quo, and then we can go from there. Mr.
When we first spoke of this as a committee, we felt that we were obliged to present the budget that we thought was necessary to do the job properly. And we were looking at a major departure